Good morning and welcome to the third edition of the Applied Research course. I will start with something that is quite obvious to all of you here, that understanding and mastering data is becoming a crucial skill, and including a course that introduces students to at least the basics of analyzing data is becoming nearly mandatory for any course that you may think of. This is why 3 years ago, in ISTAR, we decided to include the Applied Research course for our masters. So, with the objective to introduce students with very different backgrounds, shifting from law, philosophy, languages, economics, to a set of techniques that could be useful to analyze any kind of data related to a business context, related to maybe macroeconomics, as we will see. And not only this, because applied research, and so also the analysis of data, is much more. It's about team management, time management, public speaking, and to make it more challenging, in English. And it's also about getting the best out from you. And so today is devoted to you and to your presentations. Firstly, we will have the Master in Business Strategy and International Management, which will introduce us to innovation in Europe, according to the Smart Specialization strategy. They had to manage a huge data set that was provided from Professor Diego Giada from the Polytechnical University of Marè, from the engineering faculty. And they had to provide some interesting results related to patent applications at an European regional level. After a short break, Global Management for China students over here will introduce us to innovation and internationalization in China, based on a dataset that they had to design and create, retrieving appropriate data and interpreting it accordingly. Before leaving you the stage, I would like to thank the tutors of both courses, Natalie and Gianluca, for their great support, and also, unfortunately, that she couldn't be here, Francesca Spigarelli, that sends the best wishes to all of you, and best of luck. And then, finally, I would like to give a special thank you to our judging committee here, that is going to evaluate your presentations. We have over here Michele and Claudio, directly from the Data Science course. Then we have our new interns in ISTAR, Nicola, Rebecca, and Francesco, and of course the tutors of the Master, Natalie and Gianluca, that will evaluate you two together with Matteo Pasquini. So at the end they will come here, wrap up the conclusion, and give the final speech related to the pros and cons of the presentations. So I will leave directly the stage to the first group. Good luck to all of you.
Good morning, everyone. We are Milo, Maria Rosaria, Caterina, and Marta, and we have conducted research on the smart specialization strategy of the European countries through patent application. We focus our analysis on the telecommunications sector. Smart specialization strategy is one of the objectives of the Europe 2020 in order to boost innovation and R&D activities in the Eurozone. We start from a general overview of the European countries, then we move towards the sector that records the greater amount of patent application, and also we select 4 main countries, and for each country we identified one region that records the greater amount of patent application in our sector, that is telecommunication. Then we also have conducted a special focus on Sweden because we thought that it might present an interesting pattern of specialization. And also we have conducted a Balassa Index analysis, and we elaborate our final considerations. Starting from the dataset provided by the OECD RegPath, we have detected a time frame from 2000 to 2015 due to the availability of data. And from a general point of view, we can state that the two most dynamic countries in terms of patent application are Germany and France, that you can see in red. Then we also move towards the sectors. Of course, at the first place, we can notice medical science, because in medical science there is a pharmaceutical sector that, of course, has a particular need to protect its intellectual property from the competitors. However, at the second place, there is our targeted sector, that is electronic communication. Then we have selected not only France and Germany, but also the Netherlands and Sweden. And for each country, we have detected one region that shows the greater amount of patent application. For France, we have Ile-de-France, for Germany, Oberbayern, for Sweden, Stockholm, and for the Netherlands, North Brabant. Now, Caterina will present you our further analysis.
Good morning. I will show you how we decided to narrow our focus of analysis. Firstly, regarding the time frame we decided to analyze, and then regarding a more geographical aspect. First of all, as far as time is concerned, we decided to split our time frame we took into consideration, so from 2000 to 2015, into two intervals of times. So the first interval, as you can see, goes from year 2000 to 2007, while the second one will go from 2008 to 2015. In the first slide, you can see that Ile-de-France, so this sub-region, is the one which presented the higher amount of patent applications in the sector of telecommunication. It is followed by the Netherlands with the North Brabant sub-region, and then Oberbayern, Germany. The area of Stockholm, so Sweden, which was the fourth country we took into consideration, is placed only at the fifth position. Now, if we move to the second interval of time, you can see that some elements have changed. So from year 2008 to 2015, we can see that Ile-de-France is still the country, was still the country with the highest number of patent applications, but is very, very closely followed by the Stockholm area. So we can see that Sweden, with its sub-region, went from the fifth position in the first interval of time to the second position. Then is followed by Germany with Oberbayern, and North Brabant from the Netherlands is only at the sixth position. So it passed from the second position to the sixth one. Now, if we want to analyze more in detail the trends in each specific country for the whole period, so not only regarding interval of times, we can see that Ile-de-France, which is represented by the blue line, and Oberbayern by the red line, they both have a slightly decreasing trend. But what is interesting to notice is the period that goes from year 2007 until more or less 2010. And we may hypothesize that it maybe was due to a different reaction that this country had towards the financial crisis, because the most strongest part of the crisis was concentrated, was focused in that period of time. But also it is interesting to notice that both have a kind of parallel, they go in a parallel way, their trends. As far as the situation in Sweden and in the Netherlands is concerned, we can see that the Netherlands, so the North Brabant region, also presents a decreasing trend, maybe more visible respect to France and Germany, while Sweden, with the Stockholm area, is interesting because it goes in an upward way. So during the course of these years, they presented a higher number of patent applications in the sector of telecommunication. And this is also the reason why we decided to focus our attention to Sweden, because it presented this different trend. And now I will give the floor to Marta, which will show you how we calculated the Balassa Index.
We use the Balassa Index in order to measure the degree of application of countries' patents. We consider the normalized Balassa Index computing by this formula, firstly the second one and then the first one. Then we consider Germany, France, the Netherlands and Sweden. Since the share of patent application in Germany is homogeneously distributed across all sectors, the German normalized Balassa Index is negative. We can make the same consideration for France. Instead, the Netherlands shows a positive but low Balassa Index. This is because in this country the share of patent application is lower in all sectors. In Sweden, the telecommunication sector is more significant than other sectors. In fact, the Swedish normalized Balassa Index is positive and higher than others. It's 0.43. By the decomposing of this formula of Balassa Index, we can observe the region share of specialization on electric communication over the overall EU share. In particular, this graph shows the share of the incidence of the Netherlands, Sweden, France and Germany over overall EU share. And we can see that Sweden, the red one, contributes to all countries for 11%. Considering the denominator of Balassa Index formula, we can observe that the region patenting share on all sector with respect to the overall EU share. This graph shows the incidence of the Netherlands, Sweden, France and Germany in all sectors in all European countries. And this picture confirms that Germany contributes for 41% to all countries in Europe. Now I give the floor to Maria Rosaria, who will continue to explain this analysis.
So the last consideration we made about the decomposition of the Balassa Index was about the incidence of the telecommunications sector in Sweden, so within the national framework. And as we can see from this graph, it occupies the 16% of the total share of the country and is undoubtedly the leading sector in Sweden, which is followed by medical science sector, which is the leading one in Europe, measuring and testing, computing and vehicles with 4%. The residual part is the rest of all sectors throughout the country, and is basically it basically shows us that there is no other sector with higher amount than 4% for Sweden. This means that the telecommunication sector is the most prominent one in terms of patent applications, and we made some considerations about that. So first of all, Germany and France are the leading countries within the European within the European framework, and they have the higher amount of patent application share, but it doesn't directly mean that they have the higher degree of specialization. So the electric communication sector is the second industry in terms of patent application throughout Europe, And Sweden, compared to Germany and France, seems slightly specialized on the HO4 sector, which is the electric communication one, with respect to the other top countries in the sector. We also looked for some qualitative information on the S3 Smart Specialization strategy, and we found out that they are actually implementing an innovation strategy on the ICT and telecommunication sector in general. And we also found this interesting paper, which is called Key Technologies and Development Trends on 5G Optical Networks. And it's related to the investments that all countries throughout the world are making in the ICT sector. We found out that as we all know, patents cost a lot, so they must be investments of big firms. And in the top 10 of the countries that are investing in the ICT sectors, we find China, because Huawei has been investing a lot in the 5G optical network sector. Then we have the US with Smart Mobile, and at the third position we have Sweden with Ericsson. So we hypothesize that Sweden will keep on doing loads of investments in this sector, which is the one in which the sub-region of Stockholm is focusing on. And it would be interesting to carry on further research on the topic, but of course we don't have complete data for the last years, and we will keep on investigating that maybe further on. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Gianluca, and I will be your first speaker for this second presentation. Our report and our project work is called Measuring European Innovation Through Patents in a Smart Specialization Perspective, the case of Germany and Italy. Before to start the analysis, just let me introduce my colleagues who work with me during this week for the presentation of this project work. So they are Riccardo, Elisabetta, and Ilaria. So let's start. Measuring innovation in a smart specialization perspective. As you can see, there are here two key words, innovation and smart specialization. We start looking for what is innovation, and our start point is Horizon 2020, which is an European plan lasting for 7 years. It started in 2014 and now is expiring, and was born because the idea was to challenge the issue of the industrialization in Europe. So European countries decide to set a plan of bring back industrialization, but not just industrialization, in an innovative way. So Horizon 2020 is the plan to bring back industrialization, but we just don't need a plan, we need also a strategy. S3, Smart Specialization Strategy, is the way how with the European Union thinks to bring back industrialization, but in this innovative way. Smart Specialization Strategy is interesting to notice that is regulated by regional level, so it's not involving just member states, but also local realities. Now that we are clear a little bit of the theory behind Horizon 2020 and Smart Specialization Strategy, we can start our deeper analysis, and I will leave the stage to Riccardo, who will introduce you the data we use during this presentation.
Thank you, Gianluca. Good morning to everyone. We have collected our data sources to two database. The first one is Eurostat, who is useful to collect the quantitative part of analysis, and on the other end we have the smart specialization platform, useful for the qualitative part of the analysis, necessarily to interpret the quantitative data. We have we can see unit of observation and variables that we use. We use patent amount and GDP of countries for the variables, and the unit of observation are European Union's members, Germany and its region, Italy and its region. For statistical reason, we call Italy and Germany region as NUTS2, and the time frame we are selected is from 2004 to 2014. Our agenda is the follow. It follows us in the first time we will talking about an European overview on the panorama. Subsequently, we do a comparison of Germany and Italy, and then we shift our focus on Italy and its region. In the last part, we have the final consideration. First of all, we can see an European general overview, and we have the top 20 European countries per patent amount. And we can see at the first place we have German, at the second place France, at the third place UK, United Kingdom, and at the fourth place we have our country, Italy. A consideration comes immediately. And the consideration is that Germany is the most innovative country in Europe, and there is the reason why we selected this country for a comparison with our country. And now I leave the floor to Elisabetta, who will talking about the comparison between Germany and Italy.
Okay, thank you, Riccardo, and hello, everybody. Well, as my colleague Riccardo pointed out, Germany resulted to be the most developed country in terms of innovations and in particular in terms of patents. And this is why we chose to focus our analysis on the comparison between Germany and our country, Italy. So if you just look at the graph, you can see that there's a significant gap between the German patents to GDP ratio, and that is highlighted in blue in the chart, and the Italian one. However, as you can see, Germany shows a slight decrease in recent years, and this is due, on the one hand, to the decrease in the number of patents, and on the other, to the increase in the German GDP. Afterwards, we carried out a comparison between these two countries at a sectoral level. And again, we found out that Germany registers the highest number of patents applications for each individual sector. However, if you just focus your attention on the second chart in the right side, you can see that textiles and papers are the sectors where our country performs slightly better. Then, after this overview at the national level, we shift our focus to the comparison of these two countries at a regional level. And again, we found out that Germany, that the regions with the highest number of patents applications are the German ones. However, the Italian region Lombardia, worth to be mentioned, has it resulted to be the 6th in this ranking, and this is an absolute terms comparison. It is also interesting to notice that in this second chart that is a more specific comparison, so this patents to GDP ratio, you can see that that Friuli Venezia Giulia, followed by Emilia-Romagna, appears to be the most innovative Italian regions after the German ones. And now my colleague Ilaria will show you a more in-depth analysis of the Italian scenario.
Thank you, Elisabetta. Good morning, everyone. After having compared Italy to Germany and after having understood that Italy is not as competitive as Germany in terms of numbers of patent applications, we want to focus our attentions on the Italian scenario. So we decided to take a look on the top 10 Italy about the number of patent applications, about in terms of total amount, and the ratio between the patent application and the gross domestic product. So in the first case, we can see that the top 10 Italy are Lombardia, Emilia-Romagna and Veneto, while if we consider the ratio between the patents and the GDP, we can see that there are a surprising top chart by Friuli Venezia Giulia, followed by Emilia-Romagna and Piemonte. But later we want to understand in which sectors Italy has the most numbers of patent applications. So as we can see in the graph, we are at the first place the performing operations, which considers the subsectors, for example, about the logistic and the transporting and printing, followed by the human necessities, which considers, for example, the agriculture, the foodstuffs, pharmaceutical sector, and the healthcare. So, in fact, as we can see from some regions of Italy, we understand this division. But we thought that this division was not necessary to understand if Italy was actually innovative according to the smart specialization strategy guidelines. So we wanted to calculate an index, the Balassa Index, which could explain us if Italy is innovative or not. We decided to calculate the Normalized Index because the raw index is affected by high-skewness. This index is defined in a ranking that goes from -1 to +1, and the higher the index is and more specialized a region is. So in the case of Italy, we can see that in general and for each sector, Italy has a negative index. So we consider that it's not specialized in any sector. There are some exceptions, for example, Veneto, Lombardia and Emilia-Romagna, but they are specialized just in one or at least two sectors. So this part is important because we can understand that they don't follow the parameters for the S3. And it is important for the conclusion, but for this part I leave the floor once again to my colleague Gianluca.
It's me again. Hi. So, this part is final consideration. At this point, what we can see and what we saw actually is that Germany and Italy are quite two different countries. Germany is quite performing, Italy is somewhere behind. But if we recall, we start our dissertation linking us to S3. We have to remember that one of the values of S3 is connectivity. So for my quality research, I was looking for some connection between Germany and Italy. I start my research at cooperation at university level. This is just a screenshot taken by a database powered by the Ministero of Istruzione Università e Ricerca, and show you the distribution of agreements, all kind of agreements, so from memorandum and partnership between Italian university and foreign university. And there is Germany, but what is noticeable that Germany is only at the 6th position Behind Germany, there are 3 extra-European countries, China, Brazil, and the United States. So I found this quite interesting. Then I move my observation to the level of institution between Italy and Germany, and I found mainly 2. The first one is Villa Vigoni, and it's a quite unknown institution. It's just a bilateral institution between Germany and Italy. It's located in North Italy, Lake of Como, and it deals with every kind of association between Italy and Germany, so from history, but also economy, science, and it's quite important because in the board of this association there are not just private citizens, but a representative of states. So there is the representative of governments and foreign minister of the country, and for the technical membership there are the German Research Foundation and the Italian CNR, so Consiglio Nazionale delle Ricerche. So it was quite important, and I decided to show this case. The other case is Science Europe, and this is quite different. It's not only for Germany and Italy, it's an hub of European countries, European Research Foundation, and inside this hub there is the Italian Istituto Nazionale di Fisica Nucleare and 3 different German research institutions. And they already quoted the FEG, German Research Foundation. So it's important, but beside this there are not direct partnership between Italian Research Center and German Research Center. And after that, I just give a look to the role of the European Union, and I put the example of ESA, European Space Agency, and the European Research Council, because the most important. ESA, because it's the space agency. Space agency is not only about space exploration, it's also innovation about technology, and the main contributor for this agency are the biggest countries in Europe, so once again, Germany and Italy. And the other body, the European Research Council, is a council appointed by the European Commission, which is given the task to help by sponsorship or funding research in this country. So it's important because members of this body are Italians and Germans, so once again is another extra body that lets the connection between Germany and Italy possible. So if we have this data and we saw this, what we can consider, so that there is a little connection, direct connection between Germany and Italy, and the biggest part is sponsored by the European Union, it's not just direct. So what, in conclusion, we can suggest to Italian government, if it's true that the Balassa Index has told us that we are struggling and specialize, and specialization is required by the S3, we can maybe foster the partnership between Germany, because there already are partnership in economic terms, so why not extend this connection also in research field? And that's all for us. Thank you for the attention.
So that was surely a great start to the morning. I won't leave any comments because I cannot influence the judging committee, but since he has to leave before the end of the presentations, I will ask Professor Diego Giada to leave his final comment, at least on the first 2 presentations, on which he followed, and he provided already his valuable suggestions on them. So please, yes.
Well, you've done a pretty good job, especially since the last time we met. I mean, in 1 week you did a lot of progress, I think. What I like most of your presentation is that you succeeded in finding a way to tell a story, and you had. We have to say that they had a very little time to do this project work. But I think that they succeeded in finding some path to follow and to tell you something That was not the whole story about Europe and European innovation patterns, but something that was worth telling. So I think you did a good job, especially considering the amount of time you had. I hope especially that you learned something new and that you enjoyed dealing with data, because I think this is what you will do in the future as well. So thank you for your effort and for your presentations.
Okay, let's leave the stage for the first group of global management for China.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Francesca, and my colleagues are Federico and Elsa. And this morning we will make a presentation about China's degree of innovation and internationalization in recent years. So China has been catching global attention as it is becoming a global competitor both in industrial and economic development. And it actually has not always been like this. Actually, we can find some macro phases in China's development. So the first one is from 1949 to 1978, from the foundation of the People's Republic of China to 1978. And we can roughly say that it is characterized by backwardness in the industrial and economic fields and isolation from the international world. This is a general statement. And then from 1978 to the 2000s, China has gone through a radical change. So 1978 is the year of the economic reforms launched by Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping. And through these economic reforms, China has gone through opening to the international world. And its GDP has gone through an overall increase. It has attracted foreign direct investments in order to acquire high technology and know-how from Western countries. And in these years, China has become famous as the factory of the world, because it has become the main exporter of low-quality goods, low-quality cheap products. So as we all know, the Made in China label is associated with low-quality goods. But now, China has new aims. So since Xi Jinping's rise to power, now China's aims have shifted radically. So we have the aim of becoming a leader in the high-tech industry. And Xi Jinping wants to do this through special policies, plans, and projects. So when he was elected the General Secretary of the party in 2012, he launched the slogan Chinese Dream, calling for a rejuvenation of the country. And then, more concretely, he launched the Made in China 2025 plan in 2015, which aims to focus on research and development in order to enhance the production of high-quality goods and the high-tech industry. And then we also have the Belt and Road Initiative, launched in 2013, which focus on infrastructural development and investments all over the world, in particular in Europe, Asia, Middle Asia, and Africa. So now China is investing abroad. It's not only attracting foreign investments. And so our agenda for today is to first see the methodology we use for our analysis, and then we will analyze China's degrees of innovation and internationalization. First, we will see the variables we used, then China as a whole, and we will also focus on the single Chinese provincial level administrative divisions, and then we will reach some conclusions. So our units of observation are the 31 administrative divisions, including 22 provinces, 5 autonomous regions, and 4 municipalities. So we exclude Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau. And our reference period is for our time series between 2013 and 2017. 2013 is the year in which Xi Jinping was elected as President of the People's Republic of China. And 2017 is the last year reference available. And our reference year for our composite index and the clustering is 2017. Our data source is the National Bureau of Statistics of China. So for innovation, we decided to focus on industrial innovation. So our variables are the investment, the expenditure on research and development, followed by the expenditure on new product development, and then the number of new products. So we can see that between 2013 and 2017, the expenditure on research and development has constantly increased, and not differently from the expenditure on new product development, which had a stagnation between 2014 and 2015, which had a negative effect on the number of new products, which dropped in 2015. But we can say that there was overall an increase in all the variables taken into consideration from 2013 to 2017. So now I will leave the floor to my colleague Federico for the analysis of the single administrative unit.
Thank you, Francesca. Good morning, everyone. Let's now take a closer look into the Chinese administrative divisions. And first of all, we were able to get a ranking for the aforesaid divisions. And to get the ranking, in order to get it, we first standardized all the variables. And then, in order to get them comparable to each other, and then we summed them up and we got the final ranking. So in the top 10, on the first step of the podium, we have the Guangdong region, followed by the Jiangsu, the Shandong, and the Zhejiang. And all these administrative divisions, they're mainly located alongside the Pacific coast, which is the richest area. Now let's take a look at the bottom 10. We can see that the least innovative division, the region is Tibet. At the bottom 10, we can find 4 out of the 5 autonomous regions of China. Then we were able to cluster all these regions, the Chinese administrative divisions, into 3 main groups. The first one is made of the Guangdong, Zhejiang, Shandong, and the Jiangsu region, which is the most performing one. And then let's skip to the second one, which is basically the average group. And then last one, we have the last performing group, which it goes from the Jingling to the Xinjiang region. And as you can notice, from the first group to the last group, the values are actually 100 times lower in the least performing group compared to the most performing one. Okay, let's now switch to the internationalization field. For this, for internationalization, we decided to include the total value of import, the total value of export, the number of foreign-funded enterprises, and the total investment for those foreign-funded enterprises. Now, let's take a look at the import and export compared to each other. So, of course, we all know China as an export leader. So, of course, the export trend is much higher than the import one, but still the trends are very similar to one another. The thing is that from 2013 to 2014, the trend for imports it's actually been like it was very stable. Yet for the export field, it actually went up a little bit, but still the trends are similar to each other. Now, for the total investment of foreign-funded enterprises, we can see that the trend has always been going up, and of course, we're seeing the same trend for the number of foreign-funded enterprises. They're very related one to the other. Okay, thank you. Now I will leave the floor to my colleague Elsa.
Thank you, Federico, and good morning, everyone.
Now I'm going to show you the composite index that we have created for the Chinese provincial units. And first we start from the top 10. And it's interesting to notice how, just like in the innovation index, the provincial unit which ranks at the top of the index is Guangdong. And also in the top 10 of this composite index, we'll find 3 out of 4 Chinese municipalities, namely Beijing, Tianjin, and Shanghai. And then moving to the bottom 10 of the composite index for internationalization in 2017, we'll find, just like in the composite index for innovation, that the provincial unit which ranks at the lowest position is Tibet. And then we find as well the autonomous regions such as Inner Mongolia, Tibet itself, and Xinjiang. Now I'll show you the cluster that we have drawn for the Chinese provincial units according to the level of internationalization. And you can see how we have obtained 2 macro groups. The first one is the one that is made up of just 7 provincial units, and you can see how Guangdong stands apart from the other ones because it's the most internationalized provincial unit. And then we find other 6 provincial units, namely we can see how we can find Beijing and Shanghai, which are 2 municipalities, and then some provincial units which are placed in the coastal area of China. So this can be regarded as the most internationalized provincial units of China. And then the other macro group is made up of all the other provincial units from Tibet to Chongqing, and they are the least internationalized ones. Finally, we have come to the end of our presentation. I'll show you the conclusions that we have drawn from our analysis. We can state that over the last few years, China has made considerable progress in both fields, so both in innovation and internationalization, thanks to the policy and to the plans developed by Chinese government, with the only exception, as we have seen, represented by import and export, which actually have followed the unstable trend, global unstable trends. And then we have also seen how, at the same time, there is a huge discrepancy between the most developed areas, which are the ones in the eastern part of China, in the coastal area of China, and the underdeveloped areas, which are the ones on the western and inner part of China. And then we have also noticed how there is a strong link between innovation and internationalization, because we've seen how the most innovative provincial units are also the most internationalized ones. So we can say that a higher level of innovation boosts a higher level of internationalization. And finally, looking at the future of China in a global perspective, we can easily predict that the Chinese government will try not only to further internal development, but also to try to reduce this internal discrepancy we talked about before. And at the same time, China will try to continue to attract foreign direct investment in order to gain that technology and the know-how in order to become a world leader in high-tech sectors. And at the same time, China will try to increase the production of high-quality products in order to determine a shift in commercial relations, so from being an exporter of low-quality goods as it was in the past to becoming an exporter of high-quality goods. So we come to the end of our presentation. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
So good morning, everyone, and thanks for being here. So my name is Emanuele, and first of all, I want to introduce you to my team, which is composed by Giada, Giulia, and Giuseppe. So today, our research is a look into China evolution, and this evolution, we thought that it was based on 2 main axes, so internationalization and innovation. So I'd like to start by quoting Mr. McKinsey, which is the owner of a business company, company in the US that has a relationship with China. And he says technology is arguably at the center of the changing relationship between China and the world. So this sentence merges innovation and internationalization. And then we asked us why internationalization is important. Well, China has become the 2nd largest economy. So in terms of GDP, is the 2nd, just after the US, and then is the 1st one in the world for import and export values. So it's a strong nation that can influence not only the economical relationship between China and other countries, but also third relationships. For example, if we think about Italy, we need to mention the Belt and Road Initiative that led some harsh reactions from third parties, for example, from US and Germany, when Italy signed the Memorandum of Understanding with China for the Belt and Road Initiative. Then, why innovation? We need to mention the two main programs of the politics of Xi Jinping government. So the Chinese Dream, which is the aim to render China great again, like quoting Trump. And so this is the aim to render China a stable country and also trustable from other countries. And from a social point of view, we can say that the aim is to plan the differences among the countries and the different provinces. Looking at a more close future, we need to mention Made in China 2025, which is another more important program that is mainly focused in making China a self-sufficient country. So passing from a big productive country to a great productive country. So not only quantity but also quality of products and services from this country. And yeah, that's it. And for today, we're going to analyze the variables that we've taken into account. So we will see a ranking of the provinces for both indexes, so internationalization and innovation. Some time series to understand how the politics of Xi Jinping, so from 2013 to 2017, have changed the country. And also we will see a partition of the country to see the discrepancy between the different provinces of China. Then we will try to answer two main questions. So if the two main macro areas are related, and what we can expect from China in the future, in the near one and also in the further. So going into details for internationalization, we considered 5 key variables for our analysis. And first of all, we decided to adjust these variables to the GDP and to the area for the innovation ones, because of course China is a big territory and the differences are a lot. So for example, if we take Beijing, the Beijing region is very small, but we will see that the numbers are really different and really higher than, for example, other provinces, for example, the Xinjiang, which is the biggest one. So we decided to adjust these variables. The first one is the foreign capital of large and medium-sized industrial enterprises. So the actual money that come to China from abroad. The second is the number of foreign-funded enterprises. So we can see also the number. So if the investment are in a small number of enterprises, it is spread over all the country. Then the total investment of foreign-funded enterprises, the total import values, and the total export values, also to make a link with the innovation. So now I will give the floor to my colleague Giada, that will explain, Giulia, that will explain more in detail the internationalization.
Good morning, everyone. Proceeding on the presentation, after calculating operating the descriptive analysis, which means the calculation of the central tendency, we standardize all the variables, which here are expressed in different units of measure, and we computed the composite index. The composite index allowed us to rank all the provinces as far as internationalization is concerned, and as you can see, at the first place we have Guangdong with a composite index of 13.09, followed by Shanghai and Jiangsu, while the worst 3 provinces for internationalization are Guizhou, Tibet, and Qinghai. For a deeper analysis, we decided to focus on import and export values, because in 2017, China became the largest exporter and the second largest importer in the world. We took into consideration a time span of 5 years from 2013 to 2017, and as you can see from the graph, we have in black the 2013 and in white the 2017. And for the export, we can see that the values remain almost stable in all the regions. But the interesting fact is that for the imports, the values decreased from 2013 to 2017. This is mainly due to the new normal, which indicates the new phase of economic growth made by Xi Jinping. And this new economic model is based on less investment, less export, and it aims to increase the domestic productivity of China, to double the GDP per capita, and to make China a self-sufficient country. For a better understanding of the Chinese regions, we divided them into representative groups based upon similar characteristics. There are 4 main groups which are marked in the map with different color, and as we can see, the most internationalized regions are Beijing, Jiangsu, Shanghai, and Guangdong, which they have an average composite index of 12.55. And the three groups on the eastern part of China are the more internationalized ones. Meanwhile, the lighter color indicates the provinces where the international exposure is lower, and they are in the western and inner part of China. This shows us the huge gap that exists between the Chinese provinces. Now I will leave the floor to Giada, who will discuss the innovation exposure.
Good morning, everyone. I will introduce you our analysis of China's innovation. Innovation is the process by which new knowledge and ideas are created. Decades of rapid economic growth have enabled China to invest in key areas of innovation, such as research and development. In our analysis, we focused and we selected 5 key variables. The first is the total value of technical market. We chose this variable because of the increasing in the digitalization processes in every sector. In fact, China is expected to be a global leader in 5G technology. The second variable is the popularization rate of Internet. This is important due to the substantial growth of the number of Internet users in China over the past decade. The third variable is the proportion of with e-commerce transactions enterprises. We selected this variable because of the deep impact that the using of e-commerce technologies add to the new innovations that have stimulated the business sector and China's economic development. The fourth variable is the number of employed persons in urban units, information transmissions, and computer services and software. And the last variable we selected is the investments completed in the treatment of industrial pollution. This is a sensitive theme. In fact, one of the main goals of Xi Jinping political project is to reduce the national pollution and improve the quality of life. In fact, the government have declared war on air pollution, and to replace coal, China is arranging one of the world's biggest investment in solar power. According to the Composite Index, we established a ranking for innovation. As you can see on the podium, there is Beijing as most innovative region with a composite index of 18.28. And in the second position, we have Shanghai with 10.12, and in third position, Tianjin with 4.6. The less innovative region is Yunnan with a negative value of 3.19, and preceded by Guizhou and Hunan.
The two main variables on which we focus are the investments completed in the treatment of industrial pollution and the total value of technical market. Starting with the treatment of industrial pollution, looking at the graph of 2017, we can see that the region that invested more in the pollution, in the treatment of pollution, is Shandong, and the regions with the lowest number of investments are Tibet, Guizhou, Hunan, and Heilongjiang, whose value is almost zero. But looking at the time series, we can see that from 2013 and 2015, there are the majority of the investment for the industrial pollution and for the environmental protection, while between the 2016 and 2017 there is a decrease in the investments. This can be related to the visible decrease of air pollution in the cities, but there are a lot of improving to do. And for the total value of technical market, looking always to the graph of 2017, we can see that the regions with the highest value is Beijing, but there is a huge gap between Beijing and the other regions. And the regions with the lowest value is always Tibet. But for placing an emphasis on the time series, we can see that between 2013 and 2017, there is a stable growth in the technical market. This can be related to the ambition of China to become a global tech superpower. In fact, many analysts say that the scenario of tech market reveals a future growth of by 4% in 2019 and by 7% in 2020. And then for a better understanding of the China's innovation, we decided to divide the regions into 5 main groups according to the Composite Index. The group with the highest value is the one composed by Beijing and Shanghai with a Composite Index of 18.28. And the one with the lowest number of investments in innovation is the group composed by the regions in the north of China. And by this map, we must underline the huge gap between the regions, and that the regions who investment more in innovations are Beijing and Shanghai. Now, for coming to a conclusion, I will leave the floor to my colleague, Giulia.
Thank you, Giada. Good morning. So, until now, our research was based on the analysis of the single provinces taken as a unit of observation. But now we decided to look at China as a country in order to understand how they are changing. In doing so, we calculated the Composite Index of both internationalization and innovation. In doing so, we're using all variables. In particular, here we have import and export for internationalization, and total value of tech market and the rate of population with internet for innovation. As we can see, import and export decreased during last years. Instead, total value of tech market and rate of population with internet increased. So this is related to the two graphs. In fact, they are inversely related. This means that the more innovative and technologies found in China, the less it's exposed to an international context. So China is trying to become a self-sufficient country. In conclusion, China is moving from an open-door policy to a closed-door policy. Import decrease and export is stagnant. The only provinces that stand out in both sectors are Shanghai, Beijing, Jiangsu, Zhejiang, Shandong, Tianjin, and Guangdong. And in terms of investment on environment protections, since the beginning of Xi Jinping government, no stable growth has been seen, so China should invest more in this sector. But looking at the future of China, it's important to talk about positive aspects and negative aspects. In the positive aspects, it's important to mention two important plans. China 2025 and China 2049. The first one aspires to increase the domestic production, improving the high-tech field. In this plan, there is also the idea that the people should think about the Chinese products as a synonym of high-quality products and not low-quality products as people used to think in the past. The second plan, China 2049, instead aims to achieve a complete self-sufficiency, eliminating the absolute poverty in a country. China has already started this process of modernization. In fact, we have the development of the 5G technology and the development of the artificial intelligence. So China is trying to obtain a sort of supremacy in the technological field. While analysts think that China could overtake the US in the next few years, there is, of course, another side of the coin. The Chinese public debt has grown during last years, so China should try to find a solution for it. But one of the main negative aspects is the lack of a free market and the lack of a free exchange of ideas and expressions. In fact, the free idea allows people to, the free exchange of ideas and expressions allows people to improve institutions, which can lead to improvement in general. This lack also causes no confidence in the government, and a country that doesn't allow its people to speak, of course, loses trust. So, to sum up everything, China, on one hand, is pushing this process of modernization, but on the other hand, there are some problems. The problems are the huge debt, the lack of the free market, and the gap between all provinces. So China should try to find a sort of balance between positive aspects and negative aspects in order to empower its position and to be trusted as a clear and safe country. Thanks for your attention.
Good morning to everyone. Today we speak about China, an innovative and competitive global actor. This is our title of our project. Our group is composed of Eleonora, Agnese, me, Giacomo and Alessia. This is our project agenda. Before we speak about the general context, and after we speak about two important topics, such as innovation, international exposure, and after we analyze cluster. And at the end there is the conclusion. For our research, we take into account the period from 2012 to 2017. But we have also to consider some important facts that happened in the past. For example, in 1978, Deng Xiaoping made a very important plan, which is called Reform and Openness. In 2012, there was the 18th Congress of the Communist Party, where before Xi Jinping was nominated the first General Secretary, and after the following year, Xi Jinping was nominated the President of the People's Republic of China. In 2013, there was a very important strategic plan, which is called the Belt Road Initiative. And this program is very important because had the objective to promote the collaboration between China and the other 70 countries. In 2014, there was the new normal that aimed to reduce the importation. At the end, in 2015, there was a very, very important, relevant project that is called Made in China 2025. And this one is very, very important because aimed had the objective to increase, to expand the high-tech sectors. Now we consider the two macro groups that we had take in consideration. For example, we can see innovation, where we took into account 5 variables. For example, patents, the number of ICT employees, the number of R&D employees, the ICT investments, and at the end, the local government expenditures. After we consider the international exposure, where we consider the 5 important variables, for example, the foreign direct investments, the imports, the exports, the foreign enterprises, and at the end, the international tourism. Thank you so much. Now I give the floor to my colleague, Eleonora.
Thank you, Agnese, and good morning, everyone. The first macro variable considered in this analysis is the innovation, because of the crucial importance that the Chinese government has given to this aspect for the country's development and growth in both the domestic and international context. The 5 variables taken into account can be regarded as the main necessary steps to reach that major goal that, according also to the Made in China 2025, is to turn the domestic economy into a technological powerhouse. The results obtained through the descriptive analysis have recorded that there was a relevant divergence between the mean and the standard deviation, and this outcome implies a significant spread of the values among the 31 Chinese provinces, which are our units of observation. The minimum and maximum values confirm this statement. In fact, as you can see from this table, there is a significant difference between the minor province, which is Tibet in all the variables, and the major innovative ones, which are Beijing, Jiangsu, and Guangdong. In order to provide a much more evident proof of the technological impact of these 3 provinces, we have represented in this pie chart the percentages of patents issued by Guangdong, Beijing, and Jiangsu, and the percentage of patents issued by all the others. And the difference is enormous. Just 3 provinces cover the 54% of the total amount of patents, while the other 28 provinces just the 46%. In order to provide a reliable ranking of the most and worst innovative Chinese provinces, we had to make the variables comparable and classifiable, since they were expressed in different units of measure. As a consequence, we have standardized all the values in order to create the innovation index. And as you can see from this colorful map, the top 3 are Guangdong, Beijing, and Jiangsu, while the worst 3 are Tibet, Ningxia, and Qinghai in their overall commitment to the technological innovation sector. The importance of innovation has been underlined since 2013, when Xi Jinping became the president of the Middle Kingdom. From his point of view, the technological innovation was a fundamental priority to invest on. And so in this time series graph, you can see the variation from 2013 to 2017. And we can say that all the variables have registered a steadily and moderate growth. The average trend confirms that there was an increase of plus 20% in this time frame. Especially if we look at the local government expenditure variable, we can see that the average trend was plus 200% in this period. But the most shocking and also impressive result were obtained by the patents, with plus 550% in the same years. Regarding
always much higher than the mean. This means that the values are very different from one to another, and so the Chinese provinces are between the Chinese provinces there is a significant gap. This is confirmed also by the minimum and maximum values. For instance, in Tibet, for every foreign company in Tibet, there are 540 foreign companies in Guangdong. We can see that for export and imports, the minimum values is scored by Qinghai, for foreign company and FDI is scored by Tibet, and for the tourism is scored by Gansu. While for the maximum values, they're almost always scored by Guangdong, for the exception of Jiangsu in the FDI variables. Then, talking about the international trade, it can be interesting to know that just for coastal provinces, Guangdong, Jiangsu, Shanghai, Shandong, account 59% of the export, of all the exports, and 55% of all the imports, while the remaining is spread between the remaining 27 provinces. Then, after the standardization of the variables, we compute the composite index. And we can see that the best three are Guangdong with an index of 18, Jiangsu with 10, and Shanghai with 8. While the worst three are Qinghai, Tibet, and Ningxia with an index of about -3. Then, for a wider view, we did a time series of international exposure in the period 2013-2017. We can see that almost all the variables in the 2014-15 have decreased, especially the export and the imports. This is due to the new normal implementation and the devaluation of the local currency. Because for the Chinese was seen as a strategy to implement the foreign investment, while for the foreign companies was seen as the symbol of the Chinese economy slowdown. While after 2016 there is a general increase that is due to the implementation of the 13th five-year plan that has the goal to develop a moderately developed society, and so there is a general increase after 2016. Now, for the final part, I leave the floor to Giacomo.
So, thank you, Alessia. Now we are going to focus on something else, that is a cluster analysis, because as my colleagues have exposed before, there is a huge difference between the provinces of China. So we want to do a cluster analysis that allows us to group the provinces by their similarities, their common features. Let's see what are. And so with the cluster analysis, we have two major groups. The one of the left, the bigger one, represents the lowest values of the provinces, and they are grouped together because they have similarities. Then we focused much more on these provinces, and they are just 7 provinces of China, and they are just represent the 31% of a population, 46% of total GDP, and 7% of mainland Chinese territory. That's pretty impressive. And so we can go deeper in this cluster analysis and just found that the others, that represents the one on the left, they have like an international trade of export 20 billions on average, while imports 17 billion. It's still a trade deficit. But compared to the coastal or even Guangdong provinces, the coastal ones perform 10 times higher than the others, while Guangdong ones 25 times higher than the others. But that's different for the tourism variable, because in this one we can see that the tourism is not so bigger difference, because the coastal ones are just 5 times higher than the others. That's maybe because international tourists like to go to, for example, Yunnan, or like some nature that are different from bigger cities or just a metropolis. So that's an interesting fact. Moreover, we can find that the innovation is pretty different also. We have that the others provinces have an average of 100,000 employees in R&D development, while 65,000 on ICT employees. But in coastal and Guangdong provinces, these numbers triplicate or templicate. And that's a pretty, because human resource, we think that is the most innovative aspect of every country. If we don't have the human resources, we cannot have the patents. But the patents one is a bit different, because we have just 10,000 patents in other provinces, while 6 times more or 30 times more in Guangdong. And that's also interesting to know that Guangdong was the first special economic zone established by the great leader Deng Xiaoping in 1978. And maybe that's the reason, because Guangdong is so high developed. Moving into the conclusions, you can see 2 boxes. One is in red and the other one is in blue. What do you guess? Maybe these 2 colors represent 2 different countries. Let's see what are them. So, based on this picture, we can see that from one side we have China, the dragon, red dragon, and on the other side we have the eagle of America. They are fighting nowadays. We see 3 major points. China considers his Achilles heel the technology. She depends so much from foreign investors, from foreign talents, from foreign human resources. So she wants to be higher in this technological aspect. Hence, she published the Made in China 2025. But for America, this is in like a technology transfer. We lose some talents, we lose works. So that's what Trump said. On the other hand, we have the shift from special economic zones to NIDZ. Have you ever heard about it? They are the National Innovation Demonstration Zones. They are like a sort of bay areas where the innovation is highly incentivized by the government, increasing the foreign investor, increasing the incoming of human talents from abroad. And this is like an uncertainty for other countries, because we have many provinces. With each provinces, each has a different law, and that's a bit uncertainty. And they are changing faster than our governments. Then we have the new normal. The new normal focuses on China's must consume what is produced by himself. So they don't want to be dependent on other countries. And that's seen like a sort of trade war by the America. And so that's the main situation we live nowadays. So our suggestion and this report concluded like the best answer and successful way to live these days is by a win-win cooperation. We have a sort of technology transfer from one side. We can help, but we have to be use some legal and to protect our properties, especially intellectual property ones. And that's all for today. Thank you for attention.
Good morning, everybody. So our team, that is composed of Marta, Federico, and I, conducted an analysis into the economic development of the People's Republic of China with regards to internationalization and innovation. And the time span we took into consideration was the one between 2013 and 2017, as this 5-year period marked the first half of the current President of the Republic term in power. So Xi Jinping was elected the president at the end of 2012, and was also the Secretary General of the Chinese Communist Party, is head of the military commission, so he's the man in power, basically. So the data were taken from the National Bureau of Statistics of China. So Xi Jinping was president of the Republic here. So here, the economic development of China is very much related to the idea of 中国特色社会主义, socialism with Chinese characteristics. that is based, first of all, on socialism. So there's the inheritance of Marxism and Leninism. And then we have the Chinese characteristics. So China is a pretty unique country. As previously said by my colleagues, there was a period of reform starting from the end of the 70s. So China opened itself more and more to foreign direct investments. Basically to become a contemporary world superpower. So China began to understand that it could not just be a closed country, but it should have opened more and more to the world outside China. So today's discussion will be focused first of all on measures of central tendency and dispersion of values. And this was particularly important as China is a very much internally differentiated territory. So our units of observations were 31, that were the 22 Chinese provinces and 4 municipalities of Beijing, Tianjin, Shanghai, Chongqing. And then we had the 5 autonomous regions, so 31 of them, and they were very different from each other. Correlation matrices about, with reference to innovation and internationalization, composite indices to indicate what are the most innovative and internationalized regions of China, and then with reference to the common characteristics of the provinces, we clustered all of them to see what were the most similar ones. And then we will sketch some conclusions about possible future developments of the Republic. So the variables taken into account were 3 for innovation and 3 for internationalization. So we have the expenditure on the development of new technological products. We had particularly e-commerce activities that were very much the connection between innovation and internationalization, as they are both innovative, so there's a process of digitalization of enterprises, and then of course it was very much connected to exports and imports. And then we have the actual output of new technological products. We decided to distinguish the first and the third variable as it's not always connected, the volume of expenditure with the actual results in the output from a proportional point of view. Then for internationalization, we had the total value of exports, the total value of imports, and the foreign funded enterprises that have opened physically across all the Chinese territory. So here we have the central tendencies and measures of dispersion. What we can see is that actually all of them grew except for e-commerce activities. And what is really interesting here is that the standard deviation with reference to expenditure and new products is much higher than the mean. That means that there's an actual dispersion among the Chinese provinces. So they are very much different from each other. Measures of deviation are very high. The minimum here was the province of Tibet, and the maximum was the province of Guangdong. So you can see how different they are, since one is calculated in millions and the other one is calculated in billions. And then, for example, about the new products, we see that Tibet just had 8 new industrial products, while Guangdong had 58,000. So regarding e-commerce activities here, we see that the standard deviation is a little bit less than the mean, so there's actually less dispersion. So in 2017, it grew. Generally speaking, it grew quite a lot, but at the same time, there's a growth also in the inner differentiation of the data. So there's an increase in the standard deviation, there's an increase in both minimum and maximum. This with regards to innovation. With regards to internationalization, there's something even more interesting, and that is connected to the economic policies that we also said before, as there has been a very slight increase in the exports overall, and the imports are actually decreasing a little bit. That is connected to the policy of increasing self-sufficiency of production. Also about the dispersion measures, here we have a little bit of diminishing standard deviation with regards to exports and imports. That means that some policies of catching up from the most rural areas are working, and rural areas are actually always put at the beginning of the document that the Assembly of China produces every year. So they are a very important point in the economic development policies of nowadays. And also for imports, it decreased. And for foreign-funded enterprises, really here we have an increase in both the mean and the standard deviation. So it followed the same path as innovation. So we have an increase in both the average but also the dispersion of data. Here the minimum and maximum are occupied for the exports and the imports by the province of Qinghai. So not the province of Tibet, that is usually the last one, but the province of Qinghai that is very poor but not at the border with foreign countries, as Tibet is at the border with India, so it has more exports and imports simply because it's a neighboring country. And then the maximum here was steadily occupied by Guangdong, that is an inheritance from the policies of openness and reform, since Guangdong was one of the first special economic zones of President Xi Jinping at the end of the 70s, so we still see a consequence nowadays, so a little bit of history here. So about correlation, I will yield the floor to my colleague Marta, and thanks for your attention.
Thanks, Alessandro. Good morning to everybody. About correlation, we have proceeded to compute two final correlation matrices referred to both the internationalization and the innovation of the 31 Chinese provinces in the years 2013 and 2017. As can easily seen, the minimum value resulted is those that describe the relationship between foreign-funded enterprises and e-commerce, which is 0.7, and this can be due to the fact that enterprises which already have strong bonds with foreign countries need less investment on e-commerce activity to promote their product rather than Chinese local firms. On the other hand, the most significant value resulted is between foreign-funded enterprises and imports. And this can be due to the bridge that is created by these agencies between the foreign product and the Chinese market. Regarding the correlation for 2017, as there has been a little variation from the 2013, and this proves how these two factors, so internationalization and innovation, have been profoundly intertwined and fundamental for the Chinese economic growth in this 5 years time span. Regarding our time series for innovation, we consider the number of Chinese enterprises with e-commerce activity. So Guangdong stands out from the other provinces, followed by Jiangsu and Zhejiang, and the last one is Jilin. The second graph shows us new industrial products every 10,000 people, and we divided the number of new industrial products by population, and so we express every 10,000 people. And also here, Guangdong stands out, followed by Jiangsu and Zhejiang, and the last one is the province of Jilin. The third one is expenditure on new product development of industrial enterprises expressed in yuan, and Guangdong has really increased its figures, also followed by always Jiangsu and Zhejiang. About the time series for internationalization, we have the total value of import divided for destination and expressed in US dollar. and Guangdong has really increased, followed by Shanghai and Jiangsu. Then we have number of foreign funding enterprises expressed in units, so the number of foreign funding enterprises, and also here Guangdong and Shanghai stand out, and also Zhejiang and Jiangsu. The last one is the total value of export expressed in US dollar, and we have decided to divide it by GDP. So as can easily seen, Guangdong very high increased, and followed by Shanghai, Jiangsu, and Zhejiang. Then I leave the floor to Federica for composite indicators.
Thank you, Marta. So after the calculation of the central tendency and dispersion of values that my colleagues just showed you, we proceeded with the calculation of the composite indicators. And to achieve this objective, we firstly standardized all the data in our possession, and then we summed them up. We order the final results from the highest to the lowest, and as you can see from this slide, these two scales are the final results. As you can see, Guangdong, Jiangsu, and Zhejiang are among the 4 most internationalized and innovative provinces of China in 2017, and it's really surprising the results of Guangdong, in particular in internationalization, because it has a composite index of 12.45, and it has more than doubled Jiangsu, which follows in, with a composite index of 5.72. This can be explained, as Alessandro previously told you, with the fact of the policy of openness since the 80s. And Jiangsu and Guangdong are really similar in activities with reference to the e-commerce and the new products activities. And another important result is Shanghai, which has a 7th place in innovation and earned a 3rd place for internationalization. And on the contrary, we have the least positions, which are the red ones, and the last one is Tibet, both for innovation and internationalization. And all these provinces have some aspects in common, such as the geography aspect and democracy aspect. For example, they are extremely large and sparsely populated, and some of them are a bit better just because they are at the borders with other nations of Central and South Asia, but they still remain very low. Then, as final point of our analysis, we conducted a cluster analysis, and we took into account the 31 provinces through a hierarchical analysis, and this is the final result. And as we can see, it's obvious that there are 2 main groups. Group 1 with just 5 provinces, which are Guangdong, Shanghai, Shandong, Jiangsu, and Zhejiang, and the Group 2 with the other remaining 26 provinces. In Group 2, there is 2 subgroups, one with 4 units, which are Fujian, Beijing, Tianjin, and Liaoning, and then we have the remaining 22 provinces. The reason of this great division is that in Group 1 there are the most internationalized and innovative areas of China in 2017, and now we can draw our conclusion. We can say that there is a high correlation between the innovation and the internationalization in Chinese economy. And as we saw in the composite index, there are similar situations both in in innovation and internationalization, with the same provinces at the top and at the bottom of our scales. But what remains to be discussed is the huge gap between the poorest and the richest areas of People's Republic of China. The measure of dispersion underline the need of policies in order to achieve a development also for these poorest areas. And actually the second part of the first mandate of Xi Jinping could focus on this aspect, as there is a great economic potential which remains unleashed in the farthest area from the capital. And another essential final point is the importance of the environmental sustainability of certain provinces, including Guangdong, Jiangsu, and Zhejiang. And actually, the future of Chinese economic growth must depend on the, might depend on the impact that the industrial activity have on the environment. The technological industry, the technological innovation must be more and more connected to the development of new green products, on eco-friendly sources of energy, and on imports of clean raw materials. So our presentation for today is finished. Hope you enjoyed it. And for any further information or questions, here you have our email address. Yeah? So have a great day. Thank you.
Someone left some notes. Anyway, now let's listen carefully to the comments of our judging committee. So please, come.
So, yes. First of all, I would like to congratulate with everyone because you did a great job, especially considering the very short period of time you had. So I think it's a great success for ISTAO to have students like you, hard worker, never complaining. So for us, it's a very success because in a few months you're going to enter companies, and this is a sign that you are ready to face the dynamics typical of companies, such as stress, time, deadline, and whatever. So, great. Unfortunately, I was in a call, so I wasn't able to get all the presentation of the GMC guys, sorry. So I speak for my students. Again, incredible, because Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you were focused on a total different topics, so it's incredible. You never gave up. You are really, really hard worker. The professor would like, all the professors would like to remark your punctuality, your mood, the approach, really. I would like to underline this aspect because it's very important. It's like one of the most important skills we ask the students to improve during the time of the master course, and now we are just in December, so keep on working like that. Okay. And as for the presentations, I would say that the two groups are quite balanced. I mean, the first one, they've been very good at organizing data and info. Especially, I would say the format was very business one, okay? Also the language really, really organized, especially under a visual point of view. Really, the impact was really business. compact presentation, same font, same graphics, so it was easy to get the information, okay? But I would say that at the end, I realized the sort of gap of info in terms of what telecommunication patents in the telecommunication scope are. So missing some examples or tangible examples of patents, like projects maybe involving companies. So this aspect, all the aspects linked to the reality, let's say. As for the second team, it's like the opposite, because in terms of visual and presentation, I would say it's like a bit homemade presentation, you know, like it seems that you merge different slides set up by different people, okay, so I would suggest that you put more attention on the graphic side, because it's important. You're going to do that with Cindy as well, but you know, it's important to underline that aspect, that the construction of the presentation is important, as well as the dimension of font and number. Too small, guys, because it was very, very difficult to get the number, and we were in the first row. So it's important to put that in the shoes of the public, of the audience. Even the last guy in the last row should be able to get the numbers and the points. But I really, really appreciated your connections with the scenarios, the frame, so the S3 strategies, also the effort put in trying to find the players, the connection between Germany and Italy. So it was cool, because you look very, very enthusiastic and interested in the topic. So it was very, very interesting to follow your speech. But I would say that the two groups, in my opinion, are pretty balanced, and you did a very great job.
Okay, thank you.
Very professional, no?
Me? Okay. So, thank you very much for your contribution, guys. And first of all, I would like to thank Dominique for the great job she's doing every year with you guys. I really can see the improvements as compared to 2 months ago. So thank you very much, Dominique, for
Thank you, Dominique.
Apart from the introduction, I would like to quote negative points, because other than that, I'm proud of the hard work you've been doing so far, guys. So, starting from the language, I invite you to use a correct English, not because you have to show you can speak English, but because you are mastering what you're telling. And it's a way to demonstrate you are really able to handle what you're talking about. So, on some presentation, I could see the size of the font was a little bit smaller, and if audience cannot see what you wrote or what you're telling, is a little bit confusing or chaotic. So don't make it tiny but clear and deliverable to the audience. Moreover, some presentation were lacking sources, especially on the graphs. So if you don't put sources and I'm not able to give you credibility at authentication of what you're saying. So if data is taken from one important journal or one important book, it's really recommended to use it. So I can see that you have done previous research on what you are describing. Make it clear about the contents. So I was stopped by one of the groups who was talking about the Balassa index, was that, but I couldn't contextualize it. What was that? So before telling something, please describe it and contextualize it. This is for the Chinese ones. I really appreciated the historical background you did at the beginning of the presentation, but how does it relate with the later contents? So you're talking about imports, exports, or the variation on the flows of data and of investments, but please relate to the economical transaction and the historical background. So I would have put it right after the agenda. So this is the agenda, this is the historical background, and these relate to the later contents. That will be like clearer for the audience. That's it. I'm really proud of you guys. As I said, I really could see improvements on your process if I have to compare it with the beginning of November. So thank you so much. And I don't know if someone you want to add something. Yeah, or not? Yes. Okay. Please.
Very compliments to all of you. One suggestion, because you are so prepared in your topic and it's really well done, all the presentation. Only one suggestion, the eye contact with the audience is very, very important. Try to be also empathic with your public, and I think that I can share the points of your professor too.
Yes, I think that for you it was a really important moment to train the theme group and then the presentation to your colleagues and to us. For me, it was really a challenge to also to evaluate. And so wonderful, your wonderful presentation you made, and I appreciate above all the contextualization because of my background in historical studies. So wonderful.
Oh, wow, microphone. First of all, I want to thank you all, and also my colleague. I just have few simple tips, suggestions for you. First of all, for a good presentation, there are few things that I think are most important. Have a storyboard, so you can fix the aims, the main tips. Use a layout, a fixed layout. Remember that a layout gives you an opportunity and also some limits, so be careful choosing a layout. You have to use uniformity, so you have to harmonize what you are saying during all your storytelling. And also for the numbers, you have to be clear as much as possible. Too large numbers confuse the audience, so keep it simple. I don't know if you know the KISS acronyms. Keep it simple and keep it simple and short. There is another version that tells keep it simple, stupid. Short is better than stupid. So these are my, I have to choose if I can read or see you. It's the age. Yeah. So try to be simple. Simple is clear, simple, not basic. So don't confuse simple with basic. It's really different. That's all. I became shy with the mic.
No problem. I will give you the...
I will be very short.
Yeah.
Just because I'm on the feedback, just to give a feedback. I apologize with the Chinese group because I couldn't stay here, but I can understand that as the last year, you are very good in entering economics, facts and events, not so easy for you. And for you, I apologize in advance because this is not a critique to the context of your topic, of your presentation, and obviously for the direction of your tutor, professor. But remember that when you use data, you raise questions. So I exit from this session with a big two questions in my mind. One is the slowdown of Netherlands. And I say, why? So it was very, very shocking for me. It was very interesting because it was one of the points that I remind more. And I said, why? It would be very interesting to have some comments about it, just comments. I agree with them. You are very short of time. You are very, very under pressure. So I understand. You were very concentrated on data. But my question, and the question you put on the table is Netherlands, Marche region at 5th place. Okay, it's very interesting because Marche region actually are very low in any statistics we have so recently. And also, why Friuli Venezia Giulia? So just try and have a curiosity in your mind in order to make linkages between data and events. Why that? Because it's not a simple statistical data, and something happened somewhere. If you show us this big slowdown and maybe an increase of other countries, why that? Why Ile-de-France, for example, the region of France? So maybe there could be a polytechnic or just a university there, or just a particular incubating area, very, very easy for this kind of pattern. I don't know. Just to give you an advice for the future. When you will have a presentation in future, sometimes put in the shoes of your auditors. Put it there and say, I know nothing about that, but I'm very impressed because the data you show are not so neutral. Okay? So that's interesting. But thank you so much. Thank you, Dominic. Thank you, the professor. And you are wonderful. I agree with Natalie. I cannot understand, until now, I cannot understand the miracle of having this sort of presentation in English of statistics in very short time. So best compliments.
I would like to add something. I would like to hear small or short feedback from you because you drove them to today, and to me it's a success. So I would like to hear short feedback from you.
Well, I think I gave you so many feedbacks during this course every day for every single thing you did or said, that you really enriched your knowledge, I hope, so much, and you showed it here because you were confident, you showed off all your knowledge on data and techniques, interpreting them in the right way. Of course, the journey is still long. You have so much else to learn, and starting from today, you have also precious suggestions to keep in mind for next time, for next presentation. But I'm quite sure that you will continue improving, and what you learned up to now in means of techniques, tools will be very useful for you. I've been very impressed. I saw the rehearsals, and I always see that even if there is just a few hours of distance between the rehearsal and the day after, I'm always shocked to see that there is already a great difference between what you did yesterday and what you did today. Today everything flew better. There was a kind of story that, of course, could be a lot improved, I'm sure about that, but there was consistency in what you said. So I'm very, very proud of you for everything you did during this course, not only for this presentation, but all the other presentations you did, all the assignments that you did. I saw you improve step by step, and that was really wonderful for me. So I would thank you so much, and I would thank again, I didn't thank her before, I left her for the last, Sabrina Dovini, our responsible of the electrical area, that's made this possible. So everything that you saw here today, the course, the topic, our critical committee, everything here is up to her. So a big thank you to her.
Yeah.
So I think he's upstairs. I guess. Okay.
Celebrating a little bit with you guys before wishing you a Merry Christmas.